This is an individual that dedicated her entire life to making sure that her beauty was legendary. She had hours-long beauty rituals, she was known for her hair, and she also loved perfume. Today we're going to be talking about Empress Elizabeth of Austria, better known as Empress Sissy. I find her quite fascinating because she had a life that was taken up with a lot of intrigue. She was someone that really took her personal appearance seriously. If we look at the era in which she lived in the 19th century, this was a time when women were expected to be the epitome of grace, refinement, culture, and beauty. She really took that to a whole new level. One could argue that was even to her detriment, as well as to the detriment of those around her, because she truly dedicated her entire life to achieving perfection. So this is going to be the topic of our episode today, but if this is your first time listening to this podcast or watching the video, this is the Fragrance Report, where we talk about fragrance and beauty history, and we publish a new episode of this podcast every single Wednesday on Spotify and on YouTube. So if you're interested in checking back to our previous episodes, you are welcome to do so by checking out our previous podcast library. I believe right now we have over 30 episodes published, which is crazy, but I really do love doing this podcast, so definitely feel free to check out the library. But with that being said, let's get into it. I have a few fragrance favorites to share with you, starting off with Banana Republic's Dark Cherry and Amber. This is the fragrance I wear whenever I want to have some fun with my perfume. It's a bright, zesty, juicy, floral cherry fragrance, as the name suggests, but it has top notes of sour cherry and pink freesia, a mid of praline and cherry blossom, and then a base of red, amber, and cedar. What I find interesting about this is that this fragrance very much layers quite well with other perfumes. It's not too complex, so you can't really layer it with those fragrances, and it's also kind of like a juicier, maybe arguably longer lasting version of Lost Cherry. Like, think of the cherry in Lost Cherry, but add it to a fragrance with some light amber and praline, and you get this perfume, and it's quite affordable as well. I always have fun with this one. I've worn it for years, and it's one of those perfumes that I wear when I just want to feel like girly, sweet, but not juvenile. And that's what this perfume is to me. It's really, really good. I also have a perfume that happens to be my scent of the day, and this has been a perfume that I've been circulating a lot, and I'll show you the fragrance I've been layering with it in just a moment. But this is Eau de Le Grand Déjà Le Printemps. This is a beautiful kind of tea fragrance with chamomile. There's also a bit of mint in here as well. But what I love about this fragrance is that the mint is not like so insane that it pretty much takes over the entire perfume, because sometimes mint can end up smelling similar to the men's section in a designer fragrance section, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, when that mint is like a little bit too intense. This doesn't do that, which I appreciate, and I absolutely love the bottle design. I think it's really classic and timeless and beautiful, but let's go into the notes. So this fragrance has top notes of mint, chamomile, and orange blossom, a mid of grass, fig leaf, clover, and galbanum, as well as lily of the valley, and then a base of vetiver, cedar, moss, and musk. So I guess, is this a perfume de chypre? I don't know. I feel like I might be wrong in that, I'm not sure. But basically this is a refreshing, relaxing fragrance, but the moss adds a bit of like depth to this perfume. It's quite a beautiful scent, very unique in my collection. In fact, when I went to Paris, I bought it in Paris. I wanted to find a perfume that was unique enough for me to justify taking it into my hand luggage. So basically that was the fragrance, that was what I chose. Whenever I travel and pick up perfumes, I only really want to bring back full bottles that I think are really unique and interesting, simply because I can't deal with the hassle otherwise. But the fragrance that I've been enjoying layering with this Déjà Le Printemps perfume has been Wabi Sabi by the House of Oud. I have been wearing this fragrance again, and it's been a while since I incorporated it into my rotation, but I'm very much enjoying it. It has a very unique kind of spicy, citrusy nuance that I quite enjoy. And basically this has a top notes of lime, wasabi, bergamot, pear, citrus leaves, and pink pepper, a mid of jasmine, ylang ylang, Turkish rose, elemi resin, and geranium, and then a base of vanilla, musk, and cinnamon. So yes, it's spicy, citrusy, but not peppery, which I appreciate. It has like that similar like kind of greenness that you'd find in wasabi seasoning. So this fragrance wasabi is supposed to be an echo of that. And it's a very kind of like refreshing scent in a unique way. It is, again, unique, which is why I try to always seek out fragrances. Like if they're citrusy and green, I want them to be fragrances that are not cookie cutter. I don't want them to smell like every single other green citrusy fragrance out there. And those fragrances, oftentimes in that category, it can end up smelling a little bit too similar for me. So that's why I actually look for fragrances that are unique in this category. And with the Jolly Bretons and Wabi Sabi, I feel like I'm in a good spot. Room 1015 sent me their fragrance Wave Child, which went viral last year, and I am really happy to have this in my collection. I've been testing it, I've been wearing it. Let's look at the notes initially, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. So this has top notes of mandarin orange, and lemon, a mid of watermelon and coconut, and then a base of ambergris, amberwood, and cacao. So with this particular fragrance, it kind of reminds me of like a watermelon Jolly Rancher, so if you're into that kind of scent profile, you'll probably like this. It's very ozonic, fresh, airy. It kind of reminds me of like a cold cocktail that you have by the beach. That's what I'm getting with this fragrance. I have to be honest though, my perception of Room 1015 has been elevated so much since I started like experimenting with Love-O-Matic and also Jasmine Freak. Wave Child is a definite like, but it's not a love yet. I'm still working through it. I still like it. It's giving watermelon Jolly Rancher, but like refreshing and ozonic. That's, I think, like my best way of describing it. I think it's really lovely, but when I compare it to Love-O-Matic, I think Love-O-Matic definitely is so much better than Wave Child in my opinion. Jasmine Freak is also still a standout for me. So in terms of objectively, like fragrance wise, I think Wave Child is a solid contender, but comparing it to the other fragrances I've tried from the house, it's not my new obsession. I feel like my obsession from Room 1015 still is very much so Love-O-Matic, which is a gorgeous, like refreshing, clean laundry perfume with strawberry bazookas bubblegum. It's one of the most unique strawberry scents I've ever smelled, and I tend to be very discerning when it comes to saying something like that, but Love-O-Matic is amazing, and I definitely recommend you check it out. I also have, last but certainly not least, and it's basically called Silver Saffron. It's from their Extrait line, and this is again from Une Nuit Nomade. Silver Saffron is intriguing because it's one of those fragrances that they have in the line that has a bunch of notes, but smells like something other than what's in the scent pyramid. So I'll explain a little bit further. Basically, this perfume has like notes of, I think, resins. It has papyrus, saffron, raspberry, myrrh, papyrus, but in its execution, in my personal opinion, this perfume smells like raspberry, leather, and a bit of like saffron, especially in the opening, and that's what I smell with this perfume. It's not that I don't smell anything else, but like I smell the leather in here. I think there's a leathery accord, and I think a lot of other people agree. This is the kind of leather that you should try out if you're looking to explore this category, but you don't want anything that's overtly animalic. The way they have paired those notes with the raspberry in here is a definite win because it makes it so that this perfume has a lot of longevity, and in fact it is beast mode, but it does also have like a kind of a polish to it, which I do appreciate. This is going to be your perfect going out fragrance. If you're looking for a fragrance to wear on a night out, then this is going to be the perfume for you. I can say this from experience. It has been my favorite going out fragrance as of late because you just spray it on and the sillage is going to be powerful. People are going to smell you. It's a heavy hitter for sure. It's beast mode, and I do think that anyone can pull this off easily. So those are my favorites for this week so far. I'd be curious to hear yours in the comments below, so do let me know what you've been loving. But for now, let's go back to the podcast. Empress Elizabeth of Austria, better known by her childhood nickname Sissy, was born in Bavaria in 1837. She married Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria at just 16 years old, and she would captivate the Austrian court with her beauty, slender figure, and famously long hair that reached almost to her ankles. Unfortunately, her life was marked by tragedy, isolation, and rebellion against the rigid expectations of court life. When we look back today, a lot of historians suspect that she was struggling with a variety of mental illnesses and disorders, but her inclination was to control her personal appearance as much as she possibly could. And in order to preserve her youth and image, Sissy developed one of the most intense beauty regimens in royal history, from hours of hair care to strict diets, and of course, a love of fragrance and all things beauty. The Empress was very much interested in maintaining a youthful appearance, especially when it came to her skin, to the point of obsession. Her skincare regimen was legendary, and she tried a variety of many different concoctions and creams to try and maintain a youthful appearance as much as she possibly could. One of her most famous activities was to sleep in a sort of mask on her face that was lined inside with raw veal. She was also known for soaking in long, warm olive oil baths to keep her skin soft and supple, and she would often use distilled water to wash with. She also created a mask with crushed strawberries and even had a skincare routine that involved the juice of lemons. The Empress's crowning glory was, of course, her long, dark, beautiful hair, which fell down to her ankles. This was something that she was absolutely known for, and even when we look back today, her hair definitely stands out as one of her most beautiful attributes. She was so obsessive about her hair that she took great care and pains to maintain it, which is something that, of course, took up a lot of her time. Every single morning, she sat down with her hairdresser, Fanny Fifalik, and she did her hair. This process would take many hours, and the Empress's faith to her hairdresser was so dedicated that she refused to have her hair done by anyone else, and she would even not leave her apartments if she did not have her hair done by this particular hairdresser. So if she was not going to get her hair done, she wouldn't leave her home at all. And it's interesting because during this very long process of getting her hair down, a process which could sometimes take about 3 hours, she would often get tutored in various lessons and languages. This is definitely interesting because something that we do know is that the Empress was very obsessive about not wanting to have even one hair out of place. And if there was any hair that was broken or any hair that came out during the whole hairdressing process, she was, of course, disappointed. And this is something that Haman definitely observed. It got to a point where her hairdresser was actually really careful about concealing just how much hair had come out during this process. This level of obsession over her hair was not lost even on the Empress. She is known to have been quoted to say, "I am a slave to my hair." But what kind of perfumes was the Empress known for wearing? Remember, she loved to perfume her hair, and she actually disliked wearing perfumes in the traditional sense that we know it as today. She disliked wearing perfumes on her skin, and she would opt for scenting her hair with subtle scents that contained notes like violet or rose, fragrances that were meant to evoke the kind of ladylike tendencies that she wanted to embrace. And there are a few brands that operated under a royal warrant, meaning they operated under permission or they had a relationship with the imperial family, and those brands are still making some of her favorite perfumes today. One of those brands is Farina 1709. Their eau de cologne was beloved by Sissy and is listed in their records as a fragrance of hers. Now, this perfume has notes of bergamot, lemon, herbal notes, citron, lime, orange, grapefruit, and floral notes. This perfume would have echoed the preference the Empress had for light and refreshing scents. Next, we have another brand that you may have heard of. This is, of course, Creed. They were a brand that were known for providing beautiful fragrances to imperial families across Europe, and Empress Sissy was definitely not an exception to this. She had this fragrance created for her by Creed called Fantasia de Fleurs. This was created in 1862 and introduced to the public in 1983, and this has a few simple notes, with bergamot being at the top. It has a mid of Bulgarian rose, and then it has a base of iris and ambergris. And this perfume is still available today. Last but certainly not least, we have this brand called J.B. Filz. This is a fragrance brand that is still around today, and Empress Sissy's favorite fragrance from them was Imperialis Vilchon, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this name, but it had two key notes of violet and white rose, fragrance notes that very much epitomized Empress Sissy's favorite types of scent. By this point, we have already discerned that the Empress was incredibly particular about her appearance. She was a great beauty. She was someone that was known throughout Europe as being absolutely beautiful, and this obsession with her appearance, arguably one of the few things she could control in her life, transcended throughout her entire life. And it got to the point where even at the age of 30, she was known to be very beautiful. And this during the Victorian period was quite unusual because women were considered to be rather past the expiration date, for lack of a better term, by the time they reached that age. But she was able to still remain a great beauty. However, this did not last. There came to be a point in her life where she stopped wanting to be photographed. So there are a few famous photos of her just putting a fan in front of her face because she refused to be photographed. She would be painted, maybe, but she would not be photographed, even if she was in her older years. The end of her life was actually quite tragic. While traveling in Geneva in 1898, the Empress was fatally stabbed in the heart by an Italian anarchist named Luigi Lucchini. She had been wearing a corset, and she was known to wear her corsets rather tightly. And when she was stabbed, she actually didn't bleed out right away, perhaps in part because of the way her corset was so tightly laced. But she fainted, and when she started to receive medical attention, it was clear that she was not going to survive. So unfortunately, she did pass away. But her legacy lives on. She is arguably one of the most famous European royals to this day, and now we remember her as that beautiful woman with the beautiful hair and the lovely paintings of jeweled stars in her hair, which arguably is probably exactly how she wanted to be remembered as. I find Empress Sissy such a fascinating character ever since I started to learn about her years ago, because she truly is the embodiment of what the 19th century woman was supposed to be, right? But she took it to a whole new level of extreme, and one could even say that harmed her long term, as well as the relationships that she had with those around her. And I find her quite fascinating because she's an example of what happens when you take beauty standards and you kind of like supercharge them to a whole new level and cause them to go a little bit left field, especially since she is now kind of immortalized as this icon of grace and elegance. So let me know, did you learn anything new about Empress Sissy? Is this your first time hearing about her? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts and impressions in the comments below. As always, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye. This episode's music was brought to you by Kevin McLeod over at Incompetech. This is Beauty Flow by Kevin McLeod at Incompetech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.